Good Shabbos. This week is Parshas Bereishis, the beginning of the cycle of reading the Torah, and of course last week was Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, the end of the cycle of reading the Torah. And usually we look at this Shabbos as the beginning of a new cycle, transition, a time for us to sort of celebrate almost transformation and new beginnings. But of course this past week and this past Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah in Israel, the day was not really one of simcha, of happiness and joy and celebration, but really was one which we experienced tremendous horror, savagery, and quite frankly, just plain evil. So I'd like to address somewhat the question of why is there so much evil in this world? How is it possible that this exists? And what's the nature of evil? And of course, I don't have any real good answers. Philosophers, theologians, every human being throughout the history of the world was always trying to and still trying to understand why such evil could exist. But I'll just maybe elaborate on how some different Jewish thinkers understood the nature of evil and how that could somehow make a difference to us. On the one hand, we have in the beginning of this week's portion, it says there was God created light. And before he created light, it says there was choshech al pnei tahom. There was darkness over the depths. And many people understand the symbolism here as, again, choshech, darkness, is really evil. The absence of tov, the absence of good, right? Because the first thing that's created is light. Vayar Elokim es ha'ar. God saw the light that he had created, ki tov, that it was good. That's the first thing that's mentioned that's good. Now, the nature of light, by definition, is good. Throwing light and understanding and truth throughout the world is a good thing. And the absence of that, the absence of goodness, the absence of God, the absence of morality is really choshech, is darkness. And there's a discussion really, sometimes implicit, sometimes explicit, whether there really is an essence of darkness, and similarly, is there an essence of evil or not? And one way to understand this through a medrash that's later on in the Torah, in the book of Shemos, actually, in the book of Exodus, is one of the plagues. The 9th plague, of course, was choshech, was darkness. There's a very famous medrash that says that the darkness was so thick that the Egyptians were not able to even stand up, and they remained in a sitting position where they were for 3 days because the darkness was thick that they couldn't even move. And I believe that medrash is really saying something about darkness, and I think therefore symbolically also about evil. There's a theory that they had that darkness, there's an essence of darkness. In ancient beliefs, they thought that there was choshech, that the sky was actually black in a way, not just that it's an absence of light, but that there's a thick veil of darkness in the world. And therefore, what God did in the Makas Choshech and the plague of darkness, he brought that darkness down on the Egyptians, and it had an essential, something essential to it that you couldn't actually move. You couldn't get through it. You couldn't puncture through it because it was real. It had essence to it. And I think that's symbolic of the way these same thinkers understood the nature of evil. The nature of evil, there is real evil in the world that for some reason, which has to be explained and maybe cannot be explained, is God creates evil in the world. There's the Satan, there's the Satan, there's the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, there's the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death. All of these beings exist in reality, and they represent the nature of evil. In some religions, of course, that the whole world is really the forces of evil versus the forces of good versus the forces of evil. That there's something there that we have to fight. There's someone who is in essence evil. That's the Satan. But other thinkers, and Maimonides is one of those, says that no, there's no such thing as darkness. Darkness is just the absence of light. And as soon as you shine a light, the darkness dissipates. The same thing is true with evil. There's no inherent evil. Evil is just the absence of tov, the absence of good. And if goodness is not just light, but apprehension, understanding, morality, the ability to see the truth, then when we have darkness in this world, when we have evil, it's just the absence of that light. It's people who lack this knowledge, people who lack of understanding of what is really supposed to be in this world, what morality really is, what goodness is, what God represents, what religion is supposed to be for us. And I think if you accept that definition of darkness, but more importantly, that definition of evil, I think we could have a more positive outlook on the future of the world. It's not that there's always going to be evil in the world. There might always be people who lack understanding, but our job is to spread the goodness, to spread the light. As Isaiah, it says in Isaiah, we should be an Or Lagayim, a light unto the nations. Not to take a flashlight and shine it, but we should spread goodness, morality, ethics, light, understanding, spirituality. That's our job. And if we do that, and not only us, but if the world does that, then the darkness, the evil will dissipate. Does it happen so easily? No. Has it happened has it really changed history? I believe in the arc of history, it's changing. But you always have these times or places or people which are seem to be completely absent of light, of goodness. You have the ISIS of the world, the Nazis, Hamas, Hezbollah. You have many of these people, but I think as the Jewish people and the Medina of Israel, the state of Israel, we have an obligation to make sure that we shine the light of God, the light of Torah, the light of goodness, the light of morality. We have that obligation, and if we do, hopefully and soon, that evil will dissipate. And sometimes it takes a lot of hard work, and it takes physical work. We have to actually fight a war. But the war is not only the physical war that a soldier must fight, which they do have to, but it's also the war that we have to have with knowledge. We have to be there to make sure we spread that we represent the morality, we represent and emulate God's attributes of Rachmanis, of being merciful, of being kind, of spreading goodness in this world. And hopefully the world will have a future where it will be back to a world of peace. Good Shabbos.